Good afternoon, everyone online, and if people are doing watch parties, hopefully you enjoy the session together too. My name is Selena, National VP of Sona, and today, as one of the creative directors here with Chloe and Joel from Alcorn, Middleton, we're also joined by speakers Matt Drysdale from the OCT and Guled Elyas from Guled Archive. So those guys are based in Tassie, and we'll get to hear from them very shortly. We'd really love to hear how everyone is going as well with Super Studio. And so towards the end, we'll have a Q&A session specifically for this panel, but also if you've got any questions about how you're going with the brief too, the floor will be open. So just to start, we acknowledge the First Nations peoples as the traditional custodians of the lands, waters, and skies of the continent now called Australia and across all the countries that we're tuning in from today. And we recognize First Nations peoples as the first architects and builders and appreciate the continuing work on country from pre-invasion times to contemporary First Nation architects and respect their rights to continue to care for country. We want to thank RSPEC again. As national partners, this competition wouldn't be possible without you guys, so thank you so much. Just a reminder, today we're at August 5th, so 2 days out from the competition submissions, and we'll be hearing from our Design Day speakers in the second session. So to hand it over to our very first speaker, Chloe and Joel, did you want to share your screen?
Yeah, sure. Just give me 2 seconds.
And after each of the speakers share about their work, we'll have a panel discussion during which you're welcome to also pop in any questions in the chat.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. Hope you're having a fun time with the brief. 2 days to go. So we've decided to show you a project of ours which we have yet to show anyone else. So it hasn't gone beyond everyone's eyes other than the clients.
And the teams.
And the teams, of course. So we thought that we would show this just to show you some of the tools that we kind of used and, you know, because it's very much a speculative sort of project that never saw built form. But we just wanted to kind of step you through some of the processes that we sort of undertook in finding a built form. And I guess some of the requirements that from the brief that we had to adhere to and whatever else. So I'll get on with it. So that's of course us. So this here is another playground. Of course, we do other stuff. That's not our focus in our work, but this was an extension from the project which we shared the other day. So this was Barrambin, which is Victoria Park in Brisbane. So with the Olympics coming on, this project unfortunately
fell by the wayside.
So we're a bit upset about this one because we put a lot of love and effort into this one, but basically this exercise and the brief from the client was, I'll let you sort of explain a little bit further, Chloe, but it was basically about working with country. So I'll let Chloe speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, so this competition was probably the first competition where Brisbane City Council had actually actively engaged with the elders of the land in which we were looking to create this design program. And, you know, it was the first foray into this sort of consultation process that, you know, we had experience in. You know, it's not something that's done often in Queensland. I think a lot of the southern states do this quite well, like New South Wales and Victoria and Tasmania. But it was something very new in Queensland, particularly in Brisbane. So we did a lot of research, obviously, looking at the site, but also historically in terms of, the Aboriginal, history of the site, as well as, talking with the elders, and getting their first-hand experiences, in relation to the site. So we had an elder who was actually growing up on site at Victoria Park, or what they've now recalled as Brandon. And this is just some of the early kind of historic writings about Brisbane that we sort of translated into another visual format, for the team to understand quite clearly. So not just the site, but the surrounds as well.
Yeah, so I guess as architects, we wanted to, be responsible in how we were approaching this, because we knew that, we had a responsibility to do the right thing, or as best as we could. So just to show you the image down the bottom left there, that's a pretty famous view there of Brisbane, the Brisbane River. The image in the middle, which we have fading away, is when colonisation first reached Brisbane. And then to the right is what we kind of visualised about what that past might have been. But I'll just share, pre-colonisation. But this quote here, which is a lyric of King Stingray, "The sun goes down in the distance. I wish that you could see this." That was kind of what we were saying, that you can no longer recognise the horizon because of all the infrastructure that takes place in a city. So for First Nations people, they can see storms coming from miles away, whereas when we're in a city environment, there's no connection. So we were just trying to make that kind of connection there. So basically our, I guess, design concept was about past, present and future, and we used reflection in that process. So on the right hand side, the past, the ground covers all the natural environment, and then looking to the sky in the mirror in the center there is about that dreaming process. So that was one of the tools that we kind of used. Then the present, the ground is kind of more asphalt now, as we know, and we're more fragmented, and the trees and the environment is suffering. And then the third being, I guess, our concept of the future, about how we're like being more aware of these sort of situations, and about nature coming back and growing over the top of, and having that, I guess, that representation there. So a big tool that we found in this process about reading country, so these diagrams up the top here, was we kind of did this study about, so this was the site just here. We did this study about the water in the country. So where would water generally naturally flow? And then we did another study about the ridges, so the high points on the site, and then the depressions on country as well. So these were great sort of tools for us. Like the depressions on site was where bodies of water could pool. So that would be where we would place like more trees and foliage and vegetation. So this tool allowed us to kind of, then site the buildings, through that sort of process. So bottom left-hand corner is picture of site. So what is? What was is our representation of, through our studies, of what the site could have been like. And then what will be is we're trying to bring that back to what it was. So these sort of diagrams here just kind of shows you that every wall, every intervention that we sort of brought into the concept was through that study. So there was nothing kind of like placed for no reason. There was actual merit in why we positioned sort of things, and why there was entry points, and how we were dealing with blocking sound from the city, just all these devices and tools that we kind of use through that process that we sort of talked about.
And this is, I guess, starting to build up that representation or that spatial design and built form of this competition. So this was actually, again, another playground, as Joel mentioned, but we really wanted this playground to be more of an experience about the connection and the senses of country, rather than it just being solely about the playground. Again, I think we learned a lot from Bradbury Park, and we took a lot of those learnings and tried to, again, show that in a different way, specific to this very kind of historic site in Brisbane.
Yeah, so you can start to see a little bit of built form around some of those ideas. We had to, basically we wanted to create the break. That's what we called it. And that was sort of protecting the inner, I guess, the playground as such. But it was also a play on, a windbreak, which is used in, First Nations sort of, I guess, camps and things to block the wind. So we were using that as a tool to help shade play, also wind and the likes. So that was one big tool there. It was a big visual cue.
And then inside, behind the break, we had the cultural heart. So again, we were naming these elements and these objects so that they had, a name and something that the client could really latch onto. So the cultural heart was about this sort of gathering space in this sort of central area in behind the break, which was in between, I guess, the break and the playground elements themselves.
Yeah, so this was really important to us because it wasn't about just providing a playground. It was providing also a place for passing on knowledge, a place to relax, reflect on space, but also with the Oculus being
that connection to sky country.
Yeah, connection to sky country, which is like a big part of the process for First Nations people in passing on stories and messaging. So we had two lots of key groups that we were working with. So Auntie Teresa was, I guess, representing one mob, one region. And this was a study. So on the left was, all the yarns that we had with Auntie Teresa and her family. And then we tried to bring their stories into what we were doing.
And show where it related in terms of the design outputs, and showing where we were actually utilizing those yarns and those stories in the actual design.
Yeah. So then we had Arnie Deb, and it was the same process again. We wanted to make sure that both mobs were being represented in the design, and they had ownership on these kind of areas, and it's their stories, so we wanted to make sure that they were represented
and feeling heard.
And feeling heard. So these are just some visuals. Like further along, like there was a really large process. Like the other one, there was a whole expression of interest where there was 15 odd teams. Got whittled down to 4 again. Nobody got selected, unfortunately, because it didn't progress. But this is, I guess, our final submission with the visuals. And you can kind of see here reflection. So the whole purpose of reflection to us was not only reflection of nature, but reflection of self. So in that space, reflecting on where you are, being more present, and also that connection to the sky. This image here, was a story that was told by Auntie Deb about ceremony, which actually happened on site, and it was about this experience of like looking through the trees. So basically, they would hold ceremony in the kind of scrub as such, and I guess the white man was invited in. They were able to pay to come in into that kind of sacred space. So that's sort of what we're trying to represent there. And then this is that cultural heart. So all the play happens beyond, but this was really important to us about a place which reflected Sky Country, but it was a place to use for, I guess, storytelling, but also about, Aboriginal culture and First Nations culture. So we kind of showed that through these different sort of mechanisms and different, I guess, activations. So there you've got King Stingray, for instance, playing there at night. Bangara could do performance there, and sharing cultural sort of videos and the likes. And then there's just some of the visuals of the sort of play. We had sort of cave experiences through there, and just all these different kind of openings. The funnels, which we have here, so essentially was bringing in these eel traps, which was one of the stories as well from one of the elders. So we had these kind of eel traps, which were the entry points into the play. But it was also from that study as well that we were talking about, where the bodies of water would sit as well. So this is naturally where the water would come through at these funnel points as well. So that, again, everything that we kind of are showing you, there was a purpose to it. It wasn't just derived like there's an entry point as such. So that's just a quick summary of the project. It was very extensive, but I hope that sort of helps to sort of get a little bit of understanding about how we kind of were given a brief, and then we took it that much further to do the right thing for those custodians, to make sure that it was done in a thoughtful kind of process. Yeah. So I'll stop sharing now, and I'll hand over to Matt.
To Guled first, sorry.
Oh, Guled, sorry.
Which I'm happy to share the screen for. But I'll just quickly say that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. Never before seen project work.
Yeah.
Incredibly evocative and really sensitive reimaginings as well. So yeah, if anyone has questions, please put them in the chat for Chloe and Jill.
Thank you.
Leading, that takes us to Guled. All right. Is this sharing for everyone?
Yep. There we are. Yep. Cool.
Awesome.
Hi all, I'm Guled. Guled Elyas from Guled Archive, and I'll be talking about what process or design process looks like for me, and hopefully you guys can get something out of it to do something cool. So Guled Archive itself, like the practice, or is a speculative like research practice itself. Most of the work that I do and I've done has always started from a place of speculation, and I think for me it goes down to my roots of like storytelling, and most things starts from a place of story. So that's why a lot of the work that I continue to do, whether it's art or architectural, is heavily rooted in speculation and storytelling, which is either built or unbuilt, which is another conversation me and Matt were having about what is actually, what's actually speculation, like to what extent does it stop. So if you go next, so practice as research. So this is, yeah, I guess actually this was actually the image that I was supposed to talk to. Sorry. Is there a way of I can go next, Selena, myself, potentially?
Do you have the document open on your end?
Yeah, I do.
I can stop sharing if you wanted to do that instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one. There.
And then share.
And then your slides.
Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep.
I'll just go there. Cool. So one of the, I guess, one of the ongoing and continuing speculative work that I've been undertaking is called The Block, which is the housing estates in Melbourne. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but that is something that I started with, just heavily documenting the facades, mainly to talk about to address like stereotypes or perceptions that were had on those communities from an architectural perspective, and that itself was quite a tedious process of just going around and taking photos of the estates, which I'm going to do some jumping around to give them context. So there's about 44 towers in Victoria. The orange ones that are the ones that I've managed to document so far. So part of the documentation process has been, doing interviews and collecting data. And it started really quite as a fragment, as seen here. There's elements of the buildings and what were similar. And as I was just collecting data, I was finding, things to either present or exhibit, which, this was one of the outcomes of, speculating what sort of facades these buildings could have with sort of limited cost, because the whole idea was for it to be either really cheap or something that the community could potentially do even. So these were just murals that created a new depth or a new type of facade. And these were a series that I explored. And this was part of MAV and ACCA. I don't know if you guys know ACCA in Melbourne, the art centre. So there was a exhibition called "Who's Afraid of Public Space," and this was another place where this was also explored in terms of how I guess the documentation and the ideas of public housing and things around public could be explored. So there were just different points where through just documenting the data, I was able to almost I guess have the main objective was to sort of look at how the ideas or stereotypes could be broken down, and so different outcomes were there were different outcomes that helped with showing and representing the community in a different light. So that was the block. Another one was Crossroads Home to Home, which also looked at memory of home and also celebrating 40 years of East African migrants or refugees in Australia. And this was also from a place of, again, that sort of repetitive nature of how I, sort of look at different work, was collecting, elements of what home meant for different, parts of cultures within East Africa, and curating a space of memory, which, it's not a built building, but, because of the different types of spaces and the memories that were associated to those spaces, I like was an architectural outcome itself. And these were some of the spaces, and these were some of the elders, and I think even part of the outcome that was good was the fact that it brought people together, and they were able to tell their stories, and yeah, in their own words, in those spaces that held stories of theirs. And this was another project that started as a speculation, which was then realized, and I haven't been able to go and see it because it's in the middle of the desert between Ethiopia and Somalia. So the journey itself there was quite remarkable, and it was accidental. I went to Ethiopia, and my uncle, his best friend from childhood is like, Ethiopia is, I'd say, like role, like quite it's probably the biggest Ethiopian musician that we have. And then he just was like, because culturally, if someone knows you, or if you know someone in sort of most African cultures, you're almost adopted as, as a nephew, or, you call him uncle. And he was like, I want to design a mosque and upgrade some facilities for my community, or the place that I was born in. And we took a long it was a half a day journey, which wasn't really long, but just because of how rural it was, and how it was just an amazing journey of just seeing camels, and all of this was just again, for me, as I was journeying through, the observations were data itself for me. So I was just taking photos, and then got to the site, where it was a very community-led, I guess, design outcome, and this was it. It was basically an upgrade of redoing the columns, adding columns, and just adding in a courtyard, adding some amenities that were like 50,000 bid, which is like probably like 5,000 AUD, to give some context, and using 80% local skill and material, which was mainly rammed earth. They were able to realize something like this, which I'm planning to go back and take photos, but the renders and the outcome was this. So that was an amazing experience of sometimes, and this was just going with the flow. The outcome, the design process was I think this project taught me to sometimes the best way for things to be realized is to speculate. And because I speculated, and because I was always doing things, it led me to a project that was built or opportunity, which I think is quite important itself, like with this competition where I think you shouldn't be scared to try something weird, different, or new. And you should really push yourself with exploring outside of what might be normal. Like sometimes, like things might seem odd to other people. The way, like you might approach a brief, but if you're brave enough to continue, you might find an outcome that is rewarding. And um, and finishing off with something that I'm trying to do that talks to that is documenting my hometown, and documenting and mapping the city, because we don't have um, like live data of like roads that are up to date. And this was an extension of my thesis. And it's been, I've been doing this probably like, I don't know, for 5 years, but every time I just chip away on it, and every time I go back to it, there's something new that comes out of it. And that, moments of, this, it was a virtual exhibition that I did, these maps. This was part of an exhibition of just, I guess, memories of home. And these are flood walls that prevent flooding to like literally smash into residential homing. So like just sometimes being brave and exploring something can lead you to outcomes that you might not expect. And things don't need to be resolved always. And that sort of is sort of my closing statement, where don't aim to impress, aim to explore. Let the brief become a space to ask a big or strange question. The work doesn't need to be polished. Honest and curious and grounded work is, I think, the best. Yeah, thank you.
Nice job, Guled. It was really, really helpful. Those are some great final thoughts. I think you can see your heart come through a lot of the work as well.
Yeah,
So
there's
being
a lot
able,
of heart in what I do, and that's why most of it is not finished, because there's always something new that I'm passionately, embracing and wanting to jump onto. And I guess that's the whole reason of my practice. As I was even doing this, I realized Guled Archive is just a space for me to grow and to continue to grow, and try to better myself as a designer, and just as a person, as well. And I think that's what we should aim for, regardless of, it's not always about outcome. Yeah.
I'm taking notes
Yeah.
for sure. And I think this will be really encouraging for a lot of listeners. Awesome. On that note, should we hand the mic to Matt?
Hand the mouse over.
Yeah, it took me a second to get my words out. Did you
So
want to
might
take
as well-
control of your slides, or did you want me to present?
I might
Me
be
to
able to
share?
just, I think I'm just going to do what Joel did, because I'm a bit older and I have to go analog. Sorry, everybody. But I just,
Cheap shot.
oh, there we go. Cheap shot. Well, I'm older than you, Joel. I'm not as old as Gouled's boss, my mate Mick, but that's okay. He's got a year on me, so I feel like I'm still young. Just like to say that it's really interesting to see the work of Chloe and Joel and Gouled, and to actually go through those experiences and their design experiences. And I wrote down a few things. Chloe and Joel, you've really gone on a journey with these projects that you've been undertaking that is both a cultural journey for you as well, and especially a sort of considered and sensitive journey, as well as a journey of listening. I think that really comes through your work, that, you know, we can hear things, and we don't always necessarily listen, and then go away. And also being able to confront sometimes some sort of ugly truths, you know, and actually being able to undertake that journey. And I really think that the power in your work is coming out there, and it's exceptional work to see. And then also for Guled, as you were saying, Semolina, that sort of heart, that is and that emotion, and you can sort of hear that coming out as Guled's talking and sharing his journey, and a different perspective, and then mapping the sort of housing estates that sort of some of those are slowly sort of disappearing over time, but they're also you know, there's this big push for affordable housing at the moment, and the talk of rebuilding a lot of these towers, but these towers have been homes and have been communities and cultural communities for a very long time. And I think that Guled's work really stands to that. And then also that cognitive recognition. So, you know, as all sort of designers in the group, we sort of see beauty and ugliness in different ways, all of us, but a lot of politicians and advocates may perceive some of these towers as ugly. However, you know, those buildings are also a sense of identity, cultural and beauty to the people who have grown up there and lived there. So thanks both. So I've got about 9 slides, and I might take a bit of a different tangent because unlike my contemporaries in the room, I have chosen a different path. And I've also chosen, I won't call myself a failed architect. I studied architecture and have worked in architectural practices through my career, but I left my previous office in 2014 and set up my own sort of specialist design practice. And we focus on sort of master planning, urban design, and we sort of focus on concept design. So I literally live in a speculative realm, because a lot of the projects that I do, being master plans or concept designs, will either are always commercially in confidence or kept in a bottom drawer somewhere from, you know, whether or not you're a council or a private developer, or it's a competition that never wins. So I do a lot of work that just never eventuates. But I'll share a couple of projects that I don't know how it did eventuate. So probably through luck and just being in the right place at the right time. And then I'll share a couple of projects that are also speculative. But one of the things that I also do want to hone in on is maybe just explaining and maybe trying to pull apart my design process or explain a design process, because more often than not, when we get a brief at the beginning of a project, you know, there's that end goal that we're trying to get to, and there's a whole process that happens in between there. So just put up some simple prompters, and I'm assuming, Semolina, we can share these presentations or make them available at the end as well. I'm not sure about Chloe and Joel, because that might be commercially in confidence, but I'm happy to share this because, again, I'm always trying to think about or be sort of analytical about how I design, and especially always having to work in that field. What are the tangible things and what are the intangible things of design, and how can we then bring in a lot of different layerings into that? So I'm going to cover sort of on the highlighted sort of pink parts here, which is that approach to research and design, and taking all of these things here that are in pink. And essentially, I went away today and tried to reconfigure those into maybe how my design process works. And I came up with this diagram. I kind of mapped the how I sort of approach a project. I'm sort of understanding that most students out there are probably just going, well, I'm in the refinement stage of my design process, and I don't sort of care about trying to grow information at the moment. I'm trying to actually get some delivery happening. But I'll just explain sort of my one of the processes that I usually take, which is sort of we always have a critical path to delivery, right, on any competition or project. So it's where we engage with the project, or where you might pick up the brief that you've been provided, and then that 2 p.m. on Saturday, when you've got to actually submit your competition. I'm not sure what the actual time is to submit, so I don't want to spoil everybody there. But you have a time when you've got to submit your actual presentation. So usually what we tend to do is we reverse engineer from that date and we work backwards, and then we sort of give our time, or we set a bit of a critical path, and we map out what how we're going to sort of do that, and what we want to achieve in that process. And so when I undertake a project, I'll usually, you see the first one, which is just next to number 1, which is developing a scheme. I'll sort of look to grow knowledge, listen, look, and question. And you can really see that in probably some of the earlier slides presented by Chloe and Joel, that they were really out there looking, listening, looking at country, and really being a sponge or an empty cup, and trying to fill that empty cup or that sponge of knowledge. And then I've in those next stages of building, you're sort of building an information base, and that's why this sort of middle stage balloons out a bit between number 2 and number 3. Number 2 is really those tangible things. So if you look at, for example, Chloe and Joel, again, they were looking at site, they were looking at country, they were looking at the site, and those sort of real tangible things. In Western culture, we also have a whole bunch of other things, which are sort of rules and regulations, and there's briefs, and there's sort of site topography, and all of those sort of physical things that we need to respond to, and site analysis when we're doing any project. And then down here at the bottom in number 3, there are all those other intangible things. I guess maybe not so intangible sometimes, but they're the things where you then start to explore and test things such as meaning, such as your sort of intuition, exploring concepts or ideas, and really then starting to sort of generate, or what I like to do is mix the two up and give them a bit of a shake, and work through them, and to sort of see what sort of comes through that design process. So I'll show you some slides in a second that illustrate those. So once we start layering up all these different layers of information and understanding, and we've built this, that it then starts to allow us to start making tangible decisions on sort of a concept or a project, or the direction that we may want to take our project. And through those phases, we're starting to sort of strengthen narratives. We may build upon an idea that may be happenstance. We happen to look at a piece of a view or something like that we really like, and we're sort of starting to build around those things that we think is really important to our project and our concept. And at the same time, we're also letting things go. And a really important thing, and Guled and I were talking about this earlier, is being able to be brave enough to explore those things and the direction. So following those narratives and refining those concepts, but also being able to shed and let things go on that journey. And I think we always, culturally, we like to hold on to everything and we like to gather, but even also being able to let them go and be able to pare everything back is quite important in delivering the strength of your concept.
So just to that, Matt, this is fantastic, because it is exactly the process that we undertake as well. And, like the way that you've kind of ballooned it, in there.
Sometimes the balloon just gets so large, doesn't it? You're like, I don't know how I'm going to get through the next stage.
Yeah. But it might be important to sort of add, like, backing on what you just said there. I think that a lot of the students might be sitting potentially around that 4,
Yeah.
between 3 and 4 right now. And I think it is that, like allowing those ideas and that being vulnerable and just allowing things to kind of enter, and also sharing them with your teammates, regardless of how silly it might sound, because I think together, those being vulnerable and putting yourself out there is where, like number 3 that you've got down there, that's where all the cool, interesting, unique kind of ideas start to kind of unfold, which talking to number 2, which would be the brief as such. But I think, being at, say that, potentially at 4, where a lot of students might be currently with, we've got 2 days till submission, is, I think, also, like you said, shedding some of those ideas as well. But,
Yeah. And holding on to the strong things,
Yeah, pushing and testing those ideas in 3, and letting the ones that really shine sort of come through and whatever else. So maybe you could talk to that a little bit further. But
well, I've got some examples that I'll show in a minute, especially some competition examples, because you can actually spend a lot of time and heart and energy into something that you absolutely fall in love with as far as a concept and an idea, and you do a lot of work. And in my perspective, doing a lot of design competitions and things like that, and it never eventuates. You miss out on the competition for whatever reason. But there's a project that I'll talk about in a minute, which is called the Habitat Filter, and 3 of us did this competition in 2.5 days, and we ended up winning the competition. We just couldn't believe it, because we'd literally put everything together from downloading the competition brief on a Friday afternoon and go, oh, do you want to do this? And then we ended up winning the competition. There is a little bit here at the end, which is this refining your scheme and then actually working out, am I going to show a render, or am I going to show sketches, or because ultimately you have to deliver a couple of sheets in this competition, right? So there is a bit of a creating content to actually then for the delivery, and it's important being able to be quite brutal and strong in making those decisions about what am I actually going to submit for the final competition. Okay.
And being confident in what you're presenting as well.
Yeah. So put a slide in here for Joel, which is probably for me, for something that I loved doing, which I don't get the luxury of much anymore, was actually making for me with my hands, was something that allowed me to quickly get through a design process, to be able to sort of have tangible outcomes and to really connect with my brain. A lot of people now, we're all working in 3D. It is still a design process, or sketching or drawing, but for me, model making has always been something that allows me to get from A to B very quickly, because I can make something, I can rip it up, and I can remake it. This was the original sort of habitat filter model that you can see there. There's some other models in here of some street furniture that I did in Tasmania as part of a competition. So again, the takeaway from this is, find something for you that allows you to get through the design process quickly. So for me, as I just said, it was model making. For other people, it might be 3D modeling. It could be sketching. You guys showed a lot of beautiful sketches before, and that's obviously that formative ideas generation. And I guess if you can allow yourself to get through a design process without skipping, it builds in rigor into your concepts or your ideas. So it allows you to sort of generate an idea, test it, flesh it out, go through that process again. So we do a lot of printing, like as sort of architects and students, we might sketch something, we might draw it up, we might print it out, we might sketch it over the top. And it's this process of being able to get ourselves from A to B quickly, which is really important. So this is a bit of an example of that sort of process that I was talking about. I did a competition brief. The only ones that I have built are the ones that I did really quickly. And I guess getting back to what you were saying before, Joel, is because I didn't have time, so I had to strip everything away. I had to strip away all the superfluous stuff and really really deliver a competition entry that was trying to just be very clear, succinct with the messaging and the concepts of what I was trying to do. So I did some urban art. It was a urban artwork competition brief in Tasmania. And my concept was a sort of a mixing of practical street furniture, artwork or sculptures, and then usable infrastructure for the city, and also something that resonated and belonged or resonated with the climate of Tasmania, which is quite rugged and lots of very sort of big cliffs and stuff like that. So you see up the top here, we've got a bit of a sort of process diagram where we started with some sketching. We started with, we ran some community groups with the local schools, and there were some drawings that the kids did, and we developed some concepts based on that. We developed these by hand. We went away and we scanned the models into 3D, which were sort of these. Then we started looking at fabrication and making. So there was a process of going in and out of different mixed media. So don't be afraid. You don't have to stick to one media when you're sort of trying to deliver your sort of concepts or your competition deliverables. We went across many different medias of sketching, 3D modeling, scanning, digital fabrication. Then that got us to sort of the final project here. So you'll see this very quickly, very basic sort of mapping of one of the competition submission. And you'll see sort of through those slides how we have developed from sort of a concept storyboard here and then to here. And then we slowly have then developed that narrative and refined it. We're still talking about building cardboard models and then digitizing them and then actually photoshopping them, whatever we could do to really quickly get our ideas across. That was the important thing. And then down here was sort of then starting to, they were very concerned about, so I designed some furniture that had trees in the top of them, growing out trees. The city council was very concerned that the trees may not grow, which is a really relevant concern. So we had to also go away and practically think how these things may work. And so you'll see some sort of conceptual sketches. And honestly, I didn't really know what I was doing at all, but it was that leap of faith, trying to work through, trying to learn a little bit of knowledge, talk to people, listen, talk to arborists, talk to landscape architects, talk to the guys in the sort of garden yard who did this, and then actually we ended up with a physical product. So if any of you are in Tassie, there are some sculptures down there that ended up becoming street art. So that's that example. Another example of a competition submission. This is a presentation. This is straight from a presentation pack, but again, this is that process. This is a very quick process of making a model that you can see up here on the screen. And if any of you are looking on the camera, like we sort of, for me, it was an idea that I had in my head, which was really pulling up at the National Gallery of Victoria, was literally pulling up the concrete so that I sort of visualized the sort of these concrete roots that were underneath the sort of forecourt there, and then re-establishing native forest or the landscape on the top. So pretty much what Chloe and Joel were talking about, you know, what did Brisbane look like before white man came and settled and destroyed such a beautiful environment? You know, I sort of had the same ideas around Melbourne. And, you know, one of the things about Habitat Filter in this project was, you know, thinking about the landscape before this very square man-made environment was imposed upon it. So this was literally a ripping up of the surface and reinstating sort of natural natural landscape on top of, and then blocking the view back to the NGV that you can see there. So again, this was a bit of this process. Had a couple of days to do it, everybody out there. So took photos, photoshopped some plans, did a couple of sections, and then some diagrams that communicated sort of my strategy as best I could in the time that I had, and with the limited resource, because I was working for myself. And then you'll see down there, so I built the model first, and then these final renders are actually 3D model, and then photoshopped and then montaged to communicate that story. This is another competition that in Gdansk in Poland, which was a World War II museum. We didn't eventually put a competition submission in, because again, sometimes things get a bit harder and we sort of have commitments elsewhere and we don't get the time. But again, just the ideas generation and that conceptual process, you still get a lot out of. So even though you may not submit something, you're still getting a lot out of the journey. And on this particular project, Gdansk had been through a complete devastation during World War II. And there were, and you'll see in the centre here, there were remnants of this devastation still left in the city in 2010. So part of developing a concept for a new museum was actually mapping that devastation and what pieces of building had been destroyed or retained, and trying to rebuild. When we're talking about speculation, and earlier we talked about speculation and then becoming tangible things when they get built, so they're no longer speculating. So we were unspeculating or something, maybe. We were sort of trying to rebuild what was there, but then trying to sort of merge that with the destruction, and trying to bring across that destruction that had happened during World War II. So the whole process for me, I got a lot out of. Didn't submit, but again, that's just another example of that sort of process.
And I think that's important for students to know, because we've done a lot of projects too that haven't seen the light of day, but with every project and going through these processes, they're all valuable, because we reflect on a lot of the past projects, and that process that we showed you with that first project of ours there. We took so much from that, so it wasn't lost to us. It was a really special process that we were, I guess, wouldn't have maybe had the opportunity to do elsewhere. So we took so much from that process, and we can't wait to explore those ideas in a future project at some point as well.
Well, that's right, because nothing is lost, right? So
Yeah.
It's an experience. So so no matter what you've done, if you've picked up a pen and put it to paper, and you have explored something and you've sketched something, you've still created the tangible. It's no longer in your head. It's no longer speculative. You've created something tangible, and then you've created it, right? So, and then, as you say, it is a positive experience. You may think at the time, oh, I should have done that, like you're saying, but you are getting so much out of it, and then because you've inbuilt that into yourself through experience, you'll take that and apply that to something else in the future. So delivery example, what can I achieve between now and I think it's Friday? Is that right, Senalina?
Thursday.
Correct? Thursday. Whoops. Okay, everybody, it's Thursday that it's due. Don't blame me if you put it in on Friday. So again, this is this habitat filter example that I was talking about. So we took a gamble, because we basically had not much time to communicate. And as I said earlier, Joel, it's a really stripped back. So we said, right, some text, writing our vision, an image that illustrated our vision, and then also some additional diagrams that really communicated our intent, or the other benefits of what we were trying to achieve. Now, this was a sort of public art competition, so design a piece of artwork to go in the middle of a reclaimed hazardous or contaminated soil heap in South Bank in Melbourne. So it's a big pile of dirt. It's got a lot of really bad stuff underneath it. Transurban wanted to spend a bit of money to put something nice like on top of it. So we actually thought that what we would do is actually reinstate the landscape. That was one of the things that we wanted to do. We wanted to create a sculpture that would eventually disappear into the landscape. But the other thing that we also that was really important for us was actually that the sculpture be practical, in a sense that it we designed solar panels that powered the lighting for the sculptures. We provided bird and bee habitats on the side of the sculptures. We recycled the material. We proposed to recycle the materials. We distributed the sculptures across the site, so it wasn't purely one big thing. They were all broken down, and then we also made a conscious choice to remove humans physically out of the equation. So we put a fence around it and created that bushland to then allow vines to grow up the sculptures. So if you go past these sculptures today, some of them are almost disappearing because you can't see them, and I think it's fantastic because essentially what we're doing is we're trying to re-establish or recolonize or revegetate the sort of natural landscape. It can never go back. It can obviously never go back. It's a new journey in storytelling of country, right? So I think that, and we, probably through luck, through naive luck, we managed to be able to communicate effectively the concept, and to our complete disbelief, when we went to the presentation, we actually won the competition, and it ended up getting built.
Yeah, it's amazing. When I was in
yeah, we were there a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and we drove
almost
past.
Missed it because it's almost unrecognizable now that it's so full of life and full of habitat. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's truly remarkable.
I'll let you in. You'll see in this sort of image, we've sort of got this pixelated, more rust-looking sculptures. And we'll have a discussion on compromise quickly. So that was our winning idea, that these things would look like they're coming up out of the earth and are eroding. So it's sort of like some remnant of industrial history, right, or heritage, probably more akin to the giant, massive contaminated material that was underneath it. And through the design process, Transurban, who paid the $5 million for the sculptures, they insisted that the sculptures needed to, the colouring of the sculptures needed to be more in keeping with their branding and colours. So sometimes you've also got to, so you'll see that down in the bottom image, which is an image, and the reason I like the bottom image is because that's it with no trees. And as Chloe and Joel, you were just saying, now it's all grown back, but you can also see in the colours, they're sort of pretty bright and colourful in the branding, right? So,
yeah.
All right, so
that's a compromise.
That's a compromise. So in summary, and building on sort of a bit on what Guled was saying before, tell a story, but speak it in your own unique language. Really lean into your own sort of strengths, and don't be afraid to do that. You got to project manage yourself. That's something that I've definitely learned because I sort of have a small practice and I work for myself. Constantly got to project manage myself, and you like that when you're a student as well. You've got to project manage yourself. So if you've got a deadline on Thursday, think through about what your deliveries are and how you're going to deliver those. Trust your intuition, and like we were saying earlier, Joel, be willing to fail. And it's really important. And I have failed more than I've ever won, So but I think that's you gain so much more wisdom through that process, I think. And this one's for you, Senlina. Speculation doesn't necessarily mean unbuildable. Because I think that, and Guled, and we talked earlier today, I think we could talk about this for a long time. So I submitted these competition submissions thinking that I would not win. I ended up winning, and especially with the Newtown one, it was a very hard journey to actually turn that speculation into a built form, especially throwing COVID into the mix as well. And then also allow yourself I've got the words are in the wrong way, to develop multiple layers and methods within your design process. You don't always have to sort of go, well, I'm going to, and this is probably getting back to what we were talking about the other day, Chloe. Some of us are technical, some of us are very abstract. It's okay to explore all of these sort of approaches, but it's also okay to start to explore layering of them together as well. And that's sort of certainly one thing that I've done in my design practice. So thanks.
Awesome.
Well done, Matt. That was incredible and really powerful work as well. So many solid takeaways. Thank you so much. I think
I'm probably the oldest one here, Selena. So
the most wisdom.
So
the wisest of us all. It's really valuable to hear from everyone's work and process of design. And I think for all the participants, Super Studio and your participation in it will add to your repertoire that you develop as designers. And I love that diagram that you talked through. I think that understanding the process is helpful in developing clarity for the purpose of each phase, it sounds like. And I think that's really great. And I do love the celebration of different modes of work that we've kind of talked about across our different presentations today. Model making, prototyping, drawing, photography. I think students can definitely all take that on board. So the brief, as many of you would have already gathered, sets forth a series of questions and scenarios around speculative architecture. So I have a question for our panelists. The brief projects into the future, 2061. So what role would fiction or narrative or world building play into the speculative design process? And is that angled towards utopian thinking? Or are they the same? Open to you guys. Matt, you're pointing?
I'm not going first.
I think you touched on some of those responses.
I would find it's such a hard answer, to be honest with you, Senlina, because when I do that, I'm always, like I said, trying to layer so many different levels of thinking. So it's like I look at things politically today and how the world is, and then I'm laying in a lot of sort of those tangible things, and then I've got my and I think you guys were talking about somebody in the earlier lecture last week was talking about 2001: A Space Odyssey, and how old that movie is. I don't know, it's like 60 years old or something, but still relative today, right? And when I was a young boy, so like there are so many people out there who are so forward thinking, but it takes so many layers to realistically look at that. Or you can take all of that away and then just have a very high level approach to your question.
Well, just on that too, I think, perhaps when that came out, I'm making assumptions here, but because it was so different for its time.
You're talking about the movie.
Yeah, the movie Space Odyssey, it probably took some time for people to truly appreciate it as well, because it was so groundbreaking and so different, and not, I guess, for it was projecting so far ahead, and you can now see how much that has influenced films from there. That was kind of almost the masterpiece. But I think that just brings back into like not be afraid to try new and different things, and to like embrace that process of, like, am I doing the right thing here? Like, just by taking those risks, I think is actually where the kind of the great ideas start to unfold.
But also, I think using it as to an advantage for your storytelling, using what it is that you want to convey in your narrative, in your story, through your design, and actually taking the viewer or your audience, or I guess the jury, on that journey with you. And you can essentially, because it is futuristic or so far in the future, you can use that as a vessel to kind of make assumptions and I guess deliver your design in a way that responds to a particular direction that you're thinking of. So yeah, don't see it as like a hindrance or something that's unachievable or unbuildable. It's something that you can use as a tool to kind of fill in the gaps.
Yeah, when we present our work, because we've been working on it intensely for, it's generally always a short period of time, similar kind of, deadlines and things, not a whole lot of time to deliver concepts. But that intensity is, it comes through the delivery too. Like when we present, we're so confident in what we've been sort of, I guess, exploring and whatever else. And I think by having that kind of confidence in that process and then
the outcome.
the outcome, and then delivering that to the client, that helps, because you need to kind of portray that kind of energy and that whole process, like take the client, or in this, the jurors, through that process and tell them that kind of story. Because I think if you can do that successfully, and that excitement, that makes a huge impact for, to get the other side on board with your idea as well.
Yeah, to build on like what Matt and Joel and Chloe said, I actually had it written down here for me. Like, world building really starts from a place of doing something like different and being brave, for me, and like and even building on like the short turnaround times that you have for delivering concept design, even in at work or competitions, like being brave to trust your process, even if you're still discovering what that might be. I'm still discovering what that might, like, that's why a lot of, like I was saying, a lot of my work, is ongoing. Like the amount of ongoing, projects I have in my folder is a bit scary sometimes. But and even going back to what Matt was saying on, like the competition that he didn't get to submit. There's a lot of the projects that I've come back to the past few years have been things that I've started like in early bachelor years, and even like my thesis, that mosque that I've got an opportunity, which is so random, was like a little precedence that I did on an area near it. So I was able to go back into this archive that I made because I was interested in it, and I spent like a weekend doing it. And so there's never like a wrong. You can't be wrong like when it comes to process, and the more that you trust yourself, the more unique your process becomes, and the quicker that you might even become at delivering something, because that confidence and that belief in what you're delivering, because you've practiced so many times and you've done the work, that you have all those things backing your outcome, even if it takes like half a day to deliver something. But there's all this history that you have behind it. So I think being brave and and always aiming to do something different, and if you're not winning now, it'll be your you know, something that will add to you winning, 5 years from now, maybe even next week, like doing something like, so I think that's such an important thing for me.
Did we all answer your questions then?
Yeah.
Because were you actually asking a different question?
I think my questions was answered through everyone's presentation, to be honest. I was more wondering if there was anything else you wanted to add to your process of narrative building, world building. But I think, you didn't answer the question.
I think maybe just quickly on that too is finding solutions to the brief as well. Like, like finding those like key aspects that really speak to you, and providing actual solutions. Like, for the I guess, that final end goal. Like, you're not going to be able to achieve absolutely everything. Well, we try to, but by doing like focusing on some key aspects, so you're actually being respectful to the client and the end user as such, that you're acknowledging what the problem is, and you're actually providing a solution. Now, it may be a different solution to other people. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're actually providing a tangible outcome that is, of benefit to the end user. And that's what we really do. Like, we spend a lot of time listening to our clients, taking on board their whole brief, but we sort of tend to go a little bit further in a lot of ways and try and analyze the things that they're not telling us as well, like the little subliminal hints and whatever else, because we find in that space is where we find unique outcomes that come through, and we can make that part of that storytelling. We can say, well, we heard that you were talking about this.
You didn't explicitly say you wanted to resolve that, but we could kind of hear that was a niggling X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, and that thought, being thoughtful and listening,
showing your understanding, I guess.
Is it gives a lot of buy-in back to the client to know that you're doing the right thing by them.
I think while we're just there, actually, if there are any other things you guys want to add about goalposts that students should aim for in responding to this brief, is there anything else you'd add to that?
Well, the only thing I'd say is my observation is that this is a pretty loose competition, right? You've got a big monolith, you've got some stays, the goalposts essentially, you've got your deadline, you've got your delivery requirements, so 2 pages or whatever it is, but it's really up to the students out there tonight to set themselves those challenges, to explore those things, to create their own goalposts, to actually then or their constraints. So goalposts equal constraints, right? Fairly loose constraints here. So really, it's how wide are those goalposts and what can you actually fit through them, and how willing are the participants to sort of take that risk right up until the last moment of submission, to push those goalposts.
And I think I think that's perfect, Matt. And it is about sort of, like, if you are in a team, is actually, talking amongst yourselves about how can we get to that finish line, like dividing up some tasks and, identifying, who can manage certain aspects to get to that outcome as well. In the short amount of time.
What are the essential, like drawings or outcomes? Like, because you could, like one of Matt's examples, like you might not need to produce that many, drawings or, images, like just, make those, goalposts for yourself, so then you can put the most effort into what will be the hero, like, you know, create a hierarchy. Like, you know, sections are, I think, at least the most important drawings. You know, like, so yeah.
And university lecturers always say, well, you've got to have one plan, you've got to have one elevation, you've got to have one section, blah, 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 right? I mean, this is the opportunity to go, well, what is my concept? How do I tailor my deliverables or my presentation to the strength of my concept? And then what, you know, how do I deliver that, instead of going, I don't have an elevation, or I don't have, you know, a detailed section. You may not need that if the strength of your ideas are really shining through, or the narrative of the storytelling is there. And I really like, you know, you guys, Chloe and Joel, you use mixed media. You're using model sketches. You're using benchmark images. You're using some words succinctly. And you're using all of those together to really quickly get you through and present such a beautiful scheme and presentation. And as you say, Joel, you probably did it quite quickly, right? So sometimes when you over-labor things, you may not get the most out of them that actually presents your concept or idea. So
yeah, and it is sort of identifying, you know, like Chloe's like fantastic at like pulling everything together, for instance. So, you know, when it comes to those sort of things, you know, I step out of the picture a little bit, and I just provide a little bit of input, you know, to, you know, move that here, do that, whatever else. But, you know, I'm kind of like, okay, Chloe, you know what you're doing.
Very good. And I'm like, shush, don't talk to me. I'm just getting it together.
Yeah,
submit it
a little bit, and I'm in the background
Just feeding
providing
it.
content, and, you know, like, you know, supplying the beast kind of thing. So
so it's playing to those strengths within, not just, you know, internally and what you're good at and the deliverables that you need to do, but it's, if you're in a team, it's just making sure everyone can help out in their own special way.
That's honestly the fun part, and that's why I love Super Studio, is because, you know, like, you really learn the power of collaboration, you know, because of that tight deadline as well. And like, you can see that it's all possible. Like, Matt's, you know, like, done a competition under 3 days and had it built, you know, through those strong perspectives and the imagery and photo montage. Like, they are all tools that you can do quite quickly. You know, it's just, you know, finding that message that you want to put through and going strong and hard on that.
Well, we are at 7 o'clock on the dot. Oh, no, 2 minutes. I looked at that 2 minutes ago, clearly. And there was a lot of wisdom really generously shared tonight, and I think that was extremely helpful. And all of these speculative processes that you guys have all adapted to your own mode of working has been obviously very effective. And I don't know about everyone else on the call, but I'm feeling really empowered. So before we wrap up, do we have any students with questions on the call right now? If not, that's okay. You are welcome to reach out to me as well. Any final thoughts from the panelists? Have you said it all?
Yeah, you guys go.
Go for it.
I can't do everything, even though I still overthink. I think, yeah, trust you always go back to your first instinct. And just, stick to your guns.
And I reckon I'm with Chloe on this. Project manage yourselves and each other, and don't be offended by the person project managing you. So they're getting you to the deadline. If you've got to finish off your graphic work, or you've got to do this, and you've got to start setting out your presentation and all of those things, it's important. You know, it's important to trust in that person who's really good with timing, and getting those things. And then one of the things that I sometimes do is I'll even if I've got a fair bit of time, I'll actually start mapping out my presentation. I'll start sort of blocking out in a presentation where I might want things to go, text and visual assets and all of those sorts of things. So I don't end up creating content that is not going to be used. And I start focusing on purely the things that I'm actually going to be presenting. So you don't want to do a lot of work and provide a lot of effort, and you don't end up putting that into your presentation. So
Yeah.
Actually, one thing that we like to do too when we present is through our process of discovery and whatever else through particular projects, we as a team like to find words that are really meaningful, and that might be potentially something from the brief. But a lot of the times it's things that we as a team really resonate with, which summarizes, well, not exactly summarizes, but summarizes certain aspects of what we're, I guess, putting forward. So you're building that story and that narrative. It's almost like a chapter piece or something like that. And it's important not only to have it in the panels that you're presenting, but to bring, when you are presenting it, to bring those forward, because they might be like catchphrases or something like that. You want people to leave with certain things and certain memories that they can associate to your design, because we want people to like leave the presentation going, wow, that aspect, when they were talking about this, it's kind of like cues almost.
Yeah, if you can distill your idea or your concepts into one word or a catchphrase, something memorable. I think we mentioned in Bradbury Park, we called it the byways and the hollows. I think we did it again today with the break and the cultural hall. We just had those just names or those catchphrases or those ideas that were really quite memorable, and we just utilized in our presentations.
Yeah, because there's something that you can keep referring back to as well, and you're just like, by doing that, you're reinforcing the storytelling aspect, which is essentially what we've tried to instill into this whole process as well of storytelling. Yeah.
And the only thing I will say is good luck, everyone, for Thursday.
Hello, Matt.
I'd just like to say on behalf of Guled and I, thanks to Chloe and Joel for inviting us to participate tonight. Really appreciate that.
Really pleasure.
Thank you, Guled. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, we knew that you guys would pull through and inspire the students with all your work, and it's been fantastic reconnecting again.
Oh, and thank you too, Semlina. We've really appreciated your project management skills.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not sure how I feel about that.
Semlina, do you have any last things for the students as well?
I suppose I think I echo a lot of what everyone has said, but I really believe that Super Studio is a chance for you to test your process. There's like the stakes are so low and you can really throw yourself at it. I think a lot of the most powerful work comes from a place that's personal and meaningful to you. And I think the nature of this brief allows you to explore that deeply at a local scale and on a global scale. So yeah, I think coming from a place that you are impassioned, like that you're passionate about, I think is powerful, and it's also something that you can keep refining over time. So I think all of you guys have been able to do that in your process as designers. So yeah, it was really valuable to hear from all of you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we can't wait to see, I guess all the outputs now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and thank you everyone who joined online as well, and Katie for organizing this meeting. Yeah, I might just wrap up then if that's cool with everyone.
Yay.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much, Matt, Guled, Chloe, Joel, and good luck to everyone. Keen to see how you take all of this on board. Yeah, we're so excited to see your work. Get some sleep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome.
See you,
See you,
everyone.
everyone. Bye.